Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, just trying to finalize the arrangement of my screen. So great to have you all here. Welcome to the EOcafe, the first EOcafe of 2024. Let me take the opportunity. Hope you all had a good Christmas break, good New Year break, and wishing you a happy and healthy New Year. Reminder just of the rules. Is keep your microphones off unless I specifically ask you to join in the conversation. Very welcome to keep your cameras on so that we can see you. Some people like to, some people don't. And if you have questions, please just pop them into the chat, and then we can come to them at the appropriate time. And as usual, I'll ask you to to ask your own to put your own questions. So you join in the conversation. Otherwise, it's pretty much business as usual. The EOcafe, where we sort of meet and have a talk every 2 weeks about subjects of interest to the EO community. And so we're joined today. I'm joined today by Julian Beclar, who is running with the space dossier under the Belgian presidency. And we'll talk more about that in a moment and get Julien to explain. But just to give a little bit of the context, I mean, space is an important dossier in Belgium. Belgium is the sixth largest contribution to ESA, but in per capita terms, it comes pretty high up the list. Fifth now, is it, Julien? Sorry. And per capita, because at one point Belgium was probably about the top contributor per capita, I think. I don't know
if it's still the case, but yes.
So it's very important relative to the population size of, and it's also the 13th time that Belgium holds the presidency. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But Julien is the first councillor on space in the Belgian permanent representation. And for those who are unfamiliar with the setup, let me just try and explain a little bit of that. The permanent representation is essentially a national embassy in Brussels. So it acts as a bridge between the national administration and the EU institutions, which of course are largely based in Brussels. They've become particularly busy when they assume the rotating presidency for 6 months, and that's certainly the case now as we're here. So the permanent representation will follow all the EU affairs, the questions, the draft legislation, etc., and bring the national viewpoint into the Brussels discussion and prepare things for the decisions for the Council of Ministers. And you may ask, why does Belgium need a permanent representation, given that everything is in Brussels? Well, as you state on the website, Julien, it's much easier to work in the same structure as everyone else. So by doing so, you have the same posts, you have the same membership of the working groups, of the organisations within the structure of the council. And so that's basically why we're here. So we're very pleased to have Julien here, right at the start of the presidency, which started on the 1st of January. Julien will assume the role of chairperson of the Space Working Party. I think that's correct. And preparing files for the ambassadors who sit on the Committee of Permanent Representations, or COREPER, which is the group that prepares the ground for the ministers who ultimately take the decisions. So, Julien, you have a very busy time coming up, or rather has already started, but as part of the Troika, which prepares and follows the presidency. But before launching into the priorities and the work of the Belgian presidency, perhaps you'd just like to say a few words about yourself and introduce yourself to everyone. So, Julien, welcome to the EOcafe.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, to be honest, I saw that it's mandatory to have a coffee, but I've been drinking coffee all day long, so I'm drinking water right now. It's better for my health and my nerves.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the invitation. As you said, my name is Julien Beclar, and I'm the main counselor on space at the Belgian Perm Rep. So a bit about my background is that I'm not an engineer at all, but I'm living the dream life since I can work in space without an engineer background. I have a PhD on a never-ending topic, actually. I was pretty inspired the day I chose my PhD topic. I used to work on the relation between EU and ESA in the space domain, which is, like I said, a never-ending topic. The governance issue, I think, would never be solved. So very interesting for me, and it's very interesting having been a PhD studying those topics to be involved now in the space matter for Belgium. Like you said, space is really important for Belgium. We are the fifth contributor to ESA. We used to be in a really close competition with Spain, but since the last ministerial, we are officially the fifth contributor to ESA. So yeah, the presidency, exciting time. So for us, it's like running a marathon for like the last 6 months, I would say. And now we're starting the final sprint, so the final 6 months of the Belgian presidency. So at the PERMEP, everybody is involved full time now for the presidency. We all have a different agenda. So if I compare to my colleagues from other topics, for example, the one that are in charge of energy or transport, they have a very stressful beginning of year because they have many trilogues they have to do before the end of February, because after that the parliament will stop working and it will not be possible anymore to finalize those trilogues between the council, the commission and the European Parliament, because this is the way the legislative the legislative process inside the EU. So for space, our beginning of the year, it's a bit lighter than for the other one because we don't have those priorities agenda-wise. But still, and I will come back to that later, in space, it will be a busy presidency because we have many ambitions and we have important files also coming from the Commission. So about the Belgian presidency, I will come to space right after. For those living in Brussels, you might have seen on the buildings or on public transport the slogan of the presidency, which is protect, strengthen, and prepare. Protect because we will be defending the rule of law, democracy, and unity, and reinforce our social health agenda while building upon European social pillar. About strengthen, it's more like strengthening our competitiveness and pursuing a green and just transition. And for prepare, it's also a very important aspect. It's preparing the strategic agenda for the next legislative cycle, 2024-2029. We'll be soon preparing for this. It's like tomorrow on a EU agenda. It's like tomorrow. And yeah, this is our slogan, and to guide our action and bring the various tasks we identify to a successful conclusion. The Belgian presidency has identified 6 priorities. So the first one is defending, as I said, defending the rule of law. The second one is pursuing a fair and ecological transition. The third one is strengthening our social and health program. Fourth one is protecting individuals and borders. And the last 2 are promoting global Europe and finally strengthening our competitiveness. So regarding space, this is mainly in the last...
You preempted my first question, which was about the priorities, and I mean this is all prepared with the Commission and with Parliament, isn't it? I mean it's not you're not defining these priorities in isolation. So it depends.
No, exactly.
The activities, the ambitions of the institutions as well.
True. So, as I said, this is the reason why preparing for presidency feels like a marathon. It's because you have to prepare for your presidency years ahead of your own presidency. the first thing is that you are involved in a trio with two other member states. So Belgium is in the trio with the previous presidency, which was Spain, and with the next presidency that will follow, which is Hungary. And with the trio, you identify a broad general goal that you will try to reach with your presidency. Our goal, because in space, sometimes it's difficult to find a common ground between three member states that don't have the same interest in space, or sometimes that don't have a lot of interest in space. So with Spain and Hungary, the main goal was working on the competitiveness of the European industry in space. That was the general approach that we set up. But as you said, we've been working a lot with the Commission, because there's two parts of a presidency. There are your own priorities, and I will explain that later for space, what were initially our own very Belgian priority that we want to bring into the light during our presidency. And of course, and it's almost the most important part of the presidency, it's the files that you will inherit from the previous presidency and from the Commission, which for us was quite a surprise, but because we had I can't tell you how many bilaterals with the Commission in order to prepare for the presidency. And the first feedback we got from the Commission was like, oh, do your own stuff, focus on your own presidency, focus on your own priorities. And because we don't think that because it will be a special presidency, the Belgian one, because it's the end of the Commission, it's the end of the European Parliament. We have election in the middle of our presidency, so the agenda it's a bit there's trouble in the agenda with all the election, and we have to prepare for this moment that will change a lot of things.
Surprises, a lot of potential.
Exactly. But in the end, the Commission came with pretty important files. And not only in the space domain, but in the space domain, I'll explain that we would have two important topics that were not supposed to be on our table at first, and now it will be our main priorities, because in the Belgian PermRep, there's a transversal guidance, is that if you have a legislative file on your table, the main priority, and this is also the way you assess a good presidency, is how far can you go in the negotiation process with the other member states on the file that are on your table. And it doesn't depend if it's a file you like or not. It's playing the role of a presidency. You have to step back as a country, as a member state, and you have to act as an honest broker, as we say, and try to organize the debate amongst the member states with the Commission and the European Parliament, of course, if you have a trilogue with the European Parliament.
Maybe before entering into the content, it might be just worth, because one of the things we find is we've got a lot of new people coming into the circle who are mystified by the whole institutional setup. So maybe for their benefit, it might be worth just saying a few words about how the relationship with ESA works between the Council of the EU Council and the ESA Council of Ministers.
Yeah, it's a difficult relation, to be honest. So you have to take into account that for many decades, space in Europe was only ESA, was only a prerogative of ESA since the end of the 70s until I would say the beginning of the 90s. Space in Europe was ESA only. And then all of a sudden, we have a new actor in space that starts to be very much involved in space and very much interested in space, which is the European Commission and the European Union, which is quite impressive, because you might know that the space the European Union has only been recognized as competent in space since the Lisbon Treaty. But with the Article 189, but I will not get into the details. But it means that before the Lisbon Treaty, we still had the Galileo program that was started inside the EU without a space competence. So this is the reason why the process and the relations started quite were not like friendly relation, I would say. There's a lot of mistrust or sometimes misunderstanding between the two institutions. And for example, for us in Belgium, we don't have a space agency. So of course, our space agency and all the budget we invest in space is mainly invested through ESA. So of course, we will always be in favor of protecting the ESA prerogative, of avoiding duplications between what the EU is doing in space and what ESA is doing in space. But at the same time, you have to recognize that the EU and ESA don't do the same thing. ESA, it's an operational agency. They are able to develop a space program, which is something that the Commission is not able to do and don't want to do. So sometimes, there's a fear that ESA might be replaced by EUSPA, for example. But if you look at the European Space Program and all the chapter dedicated to the governance, they don't do the same thing, and it's not the plan that the EU would do something that ESA is doing. So
no, I would have said it was about the end of the 90s. It was actually when I was working for a short time in the Commission as an expert, and the resolution between the ESA and the Commission was set up and signed, and there was a lot of nervousness about, as you said, about the role that the Commission were going to play, and Belgium, but particularly Spain, was very nervous. It's our space agency, it's not an EU space agency, and so it's taken a long time to sort that out and to straighten out the relations. But thanks for that. Let's
maybe one last element that I like to recall, because the ESA is always frightened of the role of the Commission. But if you look back in the days, but when the EU started to get involved in space, you can realize that actually it was ESA ID, because the ESA saw a huge budget that they could implement for the EU. And this is the reason why one of the reasons why, I would say, because the industry pushed a lot also for the EU, because they can do nothing related to security and defense in ESA because of the convention. So they were like, okay, we can also have contract related to that part of the space program that we cannot have in ESA. But originally, the idea also came from ESA. And they were like, you should do space with the European Commission, because it's a budget that we can implement for you and develop for you.
Yeah, but there was a big discussion about the national budget and the European budget, and again, ESA has a lot of benefits, the tools that it can bring, particularly in relation to industrial policy, is extremely helpful, and would not be the same at all under if it were an EU agency or partly an EU agency. But as a part funding channel, yes, I mean, I think industry, of course, is very much in favour. So you outlined the sort of priorities for the Belgian presidency, the six priorities. Let's come to the space dossier. What do you see as the priorities there, and what do you expect to happen, to achieve during the 6 months?
So, as I said, over the past few months, and I would say the last year, we were working on our own Belgian priorities, because, as I said, the Commission was quite shy about their plan at that time. So, as a real 100% Belgian priority, we decided that we would focus on cyber resilience of space-based systems, with the space part or the ground part. So at that time, because we were one of those member states, even back in the days when we negotiated the space program, that were asking for a better understanding and to take more into account the cyber resilience part of the space infrastructure. So our original plan was having try to adopt council conclusion on cyber resilience. So for those who don't know what are the council conclusion, it's the main document you can adopt during your presidency. So it's a small declaration. The proposal comes from the presidency. So we would have drafted something, a small 2-page document, inviting. Usually it's a document where the council invites the commission to do something. So in that document, we would have, as member states of the EU Council, we would have invited the commission to think a bit more about how we could increase the cyber resilience in space and matters like that. But in the end, with our bilaterals with the commission, it appears that in the end they would go for a very big file, which is EU space law, and I would explain a bit more about that later. But in EU space law, there's a full chapter that will be dedicated to resilience, and you cannot work on council conclusion that are with the same topic of a legislative file in negotiation. So in the end, we decided that we will not go with our council conclusion on cyber because it will be discussed during the negotiation process of EU space law. But still, since it remains a big priority for us, we are organizing on the 8th of February a workshop dedicated to mapping the challenges and forging the resilience on cyber. It will be organized in Brussels, and this workshop is open to everyone. It's not only reserved for the perm reps or the space expert negotiating in the council. There would be 2 panels. One panel dedicated to the current landscape and mapping the challenges in order to understand the current state of space cybersecurity and in identifying the trends, the vulnerabilities, and the existing gaps. And a second panel, which will be more about future strategies and is more dedicated to charting the course forward. It aims to explore strategies, policies, and actionable measures to address the identified gap in the first panel. So we also hope that this workshop will be the lessons learned from this workshop could be used as some last minute input for the negotiation of EU space law. So this is our main priority as Belgium, I would say.
So this will be part of what will become a space law resolution, a resolution on the proposal for a space law. What else will be contained there?
So when our state secretary presented the Belgian priorities at the last Compact Council in December, he made it really clear that the main priority for Belgium will be to, once the EU space law will be on our table, on the Belgian table as a presidency, we'll organize a debate and to go as far as we can into the negotiation process with the other member state and with the Commission. So yeah, for us, this is now the priority number 1. It's moving with the space law. Once it arrives on our table, this is the reason why we are in a difficult situation right now as a presidency. It's because this very important file that we know will happen and will end up on our table, but we don't have a full clarity on when it will happen and where it will end up on our table. And this is also the reason why it's complicated for us, because it's a full commission. The way once again, for those who don't really know how it works inside the Brussels bubble, and sometimes this mystic and not always very transparent way of working, it's the Commission is doing the proposal in that case, the EU space law, and I will explain what we can expect in the text, because I don't have seen the text, so I haven't seen the text, so I don't know exactly. But the Commission is doing the proposal. There's a parallel process that happened after that. In the council, where the member states are represented, we try to reach to an agreement on the text. So we negotiate, we make proposal, we redraft the text, also with the Commission, that tries to to keep the text as much as it is in the original form as possible. But sometimes it gets out of hand, and the text it's changed a lot. And at the parallel, at the same time, there's the same kind of work is started in the European Parliament, where a rapporteur is identified, and they start to negotiate on the text and reach an agreement of the Parliament. And once every institution has its own agreement, you can have two very, very different texts. We already had it in the past with EARSC, for example, or with the European Space Program, because the focus in the Parliament and the focus in the Council and the sensibilities are not always the same. The trilogue start at that moment. So as a presidency, you try to protect as much as you can the agreement reached in the Council. The Parliament is trying to do the same, and the Commission is trying to find a common ground between the two, and trying to win with Parliament what they lost in the Council, or the other way around.
Yeah.
And in the end, this is how you reach an agreement on the text in the EU. But it can take a lot of time for the space program. It took almost 2 years. For EARSC, for example, it took 6 months. It was 6 months to reach an agreement. I mean, 6 months to reach an agreement in the Council. After that, there was the trilogue. But in the Council, it was very, very fast.
So, reading behind that, you don't expect to reach the conclusions for the space law under the Belgian presidency?
I wish, honestly, and this is our goal.
Okay.
I mean, the French presidency set the bar pretty high with EARSC. Everybody said at the beginning of the negotiation process, it's not possible to do it in 6 months, and they did. Of course, it will be different with EU space law than with EARSC, because there's not the same sense of urgency we had for EARSC. For the frequencies, for example, EU space law is also something very different from a regular program like we used to negotiate when we negotiate Copernicus, Galileo, or something like that. It's a regulation dealing with law. It's very different from what we used to do. But still, our goal is to go as far as we can. And if at some point we realize that it will not be possible to reach an agreement on the text, we can also set the goal to reach a partial agreement on a part of the text. And in that case, the part we will focus on is easy to find. It will be the part dealing with resilience and cyber resilience, because it also makes the link with our own priority as a presidency.
Sounds like a lot of pizza meetings coming up then.
Yeah, actually, it was. This is also the reason, because when I said the Commission came out of nowhere with the EU space law, it was almost true. It came at the State of the Union speech from Ursula von der Leyen at the end of the year, and it was a surprise for everyone, even for the people involved on the topic inside the Commission, because they were not sure it would go through the priority. It will become a priority for the 2024. So it was a surprise for us, and this is also the reason why we had to reschedule all the meetings we were preparing for our presidency, because when you prepare the agenda of your presidency, you try to have an equal number of meetings throughout your entire presidency. So a few meetings in February, a few in March, and stuff like that. And in the end, we decided that we will cancel the meeting we were planning in January and February. It's also a nice move towards our colleague in the PERMEP that are in desperate needs of meeting room, because you don't have an infinite number of meeting rooms inside the council. You also need the interpreters. It involves a lot of administration, and so we decided that we will not have as many meetings as we were planning in January and February, and to put all the meetings starting from March, because we can expect that the proposal will arrive around something like mid-March. So starting from mid-March, we are fully dedicated to moving and organizing the debate on EU space law. And another topic, which is the second important topic coming from the Commission, and that will also be important, is the midterm review of the program, of the space program.
Yeah. So, I mean, not much information existing as yet about the space law. It's all been put forward rather quickly. I guess it's a subject that we shall try to follow and maybe come back to in the EOcafe, maybe in March when things start to hot up. Certainly, I hope as EARSC that there will be some views developed. But do you see specific parts of it dealing with Earth observation? For example, a few years ago, there was an attempt to try to introduce a new piece of legislation surrounding high-res satellites and registration and control over high-res satellites amongst the member states. So it wasn't an EU sort of competence as such, but it was trying to encourage the member states each to have their own legislation without making it binding. Do you see further attempts there? What do you see relating to Earth observation?
So, to be honest, I don't know. At this stage, we've been pretty much involved as a member state in the preparation process of the space law. There was indeed a huge consultation process that was started with the Commission, with workshop with a space law expert, consultation with stakeholders, public consultation with the industry also, and the professional association. So there was a huge process where everybody was able to be vocal about what they would expect or what they would fear to see in EU space law. But now it's in the end of the Commission, and based on all those inputs, they're trying to make a proposal that would be acceptable for everyone. You also know that space law will be, as a member state, not as the presidency, we will pay a lot of attention to that text, because we are one of the 11 member states that have a space law. We have a space law in Belgium that has been or is in the process of being revised and updated now. But I don't know what if Earth observation will be focused. It will be. I guess it will be very transversal. We know that there will be three main chapters: one on security, one on safety, one on sustainability. This is the thing that we can understand the more at this stage. But for the rest, it's, as I said, it's in the end of the Commission. We can expect many things. We can expect, yeah, it's. For example, you can expect that in the text on every chapter there will be two sets of measures. There will be binding measure and non-binding measures. So, when you talk about the non-binding measure, there was this whole reflection about having a space-safe label, for example, and. So this is the thing that we can expect. Same on the sustainability. If you think about binding measure on sustainability, they are thinking about what we call the PEFCR. It's Product Environmental Footprint Category rules. So those are the things that have been suggested, but how far will the Commission go? It's I think that's there's only one or two person that really knows what they will propose. But I think that's because Commission came to our Space Working Party in order in December in order to present state of the art where they were, and if I have to to pinpoint what could be the main point that will focus and that will generate friction with the member states. The first one is, and it's a purely legal one, it's the legal basis. As I said, there's only one legal basis for space in the treaty. It's the Article 189, and it prohibits the EU to do harmonization. But if you discuss with the Commission and you understand that what they try to do is harmonize all the national space laws. So they had to find another legal basis, which is if I'm correct, the 114 about the internal market. So doing something on space without using the legal basis for space might be a problem. So this could be a huge part of the discussion, but if you think about it, it has nothing to do with the motto and the purpose of the legislation. It's just how we will do it.
You
and the other one, and I will be very quick about it, it's about the proportionality of the measures. If you have like really heavy measures, it could be an extra burden on SMEs and that don't have the same resources as the major industrial players. So this will be also a very important point for some member states that have a lot of SMEs dealing with space.
Yeah, it's a sector with a lot of SMEs.
I cannot hear you, Jeff.
Huh? I'm muted? No.
Oh.
Hello?
Is it me?
Do people hear me?
We can hear you, Jeff.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry, that's from my question. We're talking about SMEs.
Yeah, I cannot. It happens to be a problem with my mic. I don't know if you still can hear me.
We hear you. Yeah. We hear you well, Julien, but you don't hear me or hear us.
Julien, can you hear me?
That's really strange.
I will reconnect.
Okay.
Give me 5 seconds and I will reconnect.
Understood. Okay. So this is unfortunate. I think it's the first time we really had this sort of technical difficulty during the call. And it's strange for the sound to suddenly just go. Okay. So, I mean, as talking with Julien before, there doesn't seem to be much information around at the moment about what the space law will contain. I can only say that we'll try to follow that, and as I said earlier, bring it back into discussion when it becomes a bit hotter and a bit more defined. And we'll see what happens. Can't really say much more than that. In terms of encouraging SMEs, that's great. What I want to just go on and explore a little bit about other legislation. So legislation, a bit as Giovanni has put into the chat about anchor tenancy, but more directly, the introduction of legislation that can enable the uptake of Earth observation, because this seems to be becoming increasingly important. In forestry was a recent example, but there are many others. We've looked a lot at water quality, which is not recognized. Earth observation is not recognized as a tool for water quality measurement.
Was it the heart of my question? The relation between legislation and anchor tenancy.
Yeah. You hear us, Julien?
I can hear you. I don't know what happened.
No, it's really strange. Not seen that before. So let me just jump in then, because what I wanted to explore was sort of outside the space dossier. The uptake of Earth observation is very dependent on the public market. I mean, we consider it's about 50% of the market, and it doesn't really change too much. So government public sector has a very strong influence over the market. And one way in which that influence is through legislation in completely different domains. Water quality is an example where we know that Earth observation satellite observations can help with the monitoring of water quality. We've done 3 SEBS cases around that now, and but the legislation doesn't actually recognize Earth observation as a tool, and that acts as a barrier, because then the agencies, whether they're at national level or at regional level in the countries, don't have the budget to implement, because it's not referenced in EU legislation or rolling down to national legislation. So do you see any moves to look in other domains where there are opportunities for Earth observation to be included?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I remember that when we were negotiating the EU space program, Belgium was one of the member states the most vocal about the space program that needs to be user driven. It has always been a motto for us, and so if it actually brings me to the second important file from the Commission. It's the midterm review of the space program. It's currently, if you look at the space program, if I remember correctly, it's in Article 107. It says that the space program is user driven, and it requires a constant and permanent involvement of the user in the implementation and development of the program. And when you look at the implementation of this article, you can be a bit disappointed about the user-driven dimension that there is in the space program. For example, there's a user forum that has been created. As a Belgian delegate in the EU institution, I don't even know if this user forum very often meet and what they really discuss. So there's
it's really dominated. It's really dominated by the supply side still. It's called a user forum, but it's those coming from the space side and the Earth observation side who participate that. And so again, it's relying on them to go back into the member states, but there's a fraction there. It's not joined up.
Yeah, but for us, it's interesting, and the timing and the question you raise is a pretty interesting one, because we will have, as Belgium and as presidency, we have the opportunity to address the review. So we do in the space program, as I said, we do a midterm review. And this midterm review will happen during our presidency. So the Commission will come to the Space Working Party and will present the outcome of the study they ordered on the implementation of the first 3 years of the implementation of the space program. And of course, one part of this report will be dealing with the Copernicus user need and user needs. And spoiler alert, if you look at the first finding of the report, so once again, I've only seen like a few very unofficial one, and it will only be official once it will be on the table of our Space Working Party. But for the Copernicus user needs, in terms of gaps identified, overall the report is pretty good, and they don't see any actually critical gaps in user needs across the various segments. So the idea they get, it's regarding Copernicus user needs, everything is fine, and there are no problem. Which
may have some there.
And you are more than welcome to make some comment, of course, because for us, as I said, we will, based on the report that the Commission will present during in the Space Working Party on the implementation of the space program. So not just only the Earth observation part. As Belgian presidency, we have the responsibility of drafting Council conclusion on the implementation of the space program, and of course, we will work hand to hand with all the other member states. But in we have the opportunity as a presidency to propose the first draft, and of course for us the user needs, and for Belgium, you also might know that Copernicus is and Earth observation in general is very important. So we might be vocal about the way the user needs that are reflected are implemented and are reflected in the implementation of the space program.
Out of the SEBS project, which I'm assuming you know, but I won't go into it today because we're running out of time. But we will shortly be publishing a report where we're looking across the cases we've analysed and trying to see what we can conclude from them. And one of the main sort of themes that we come out with is this question of why has a particular service been successfully adopted in one country and not in another one. You know, what are the basic reasons? Are there underlying geographical reasons? In some cases there are, but more usually it's institutional reasons and different aspects of that. So that could be maybe will be useful in this context. Let me, we're pressing on, so let me invite others to come in. I think Wolfhard was the first to put a question down. I'm not sure that should really be the criterion, because it will be inviting everyone to put in a quick question in order to get asked first, but I will stick with that. And Wolfhard, please come in. You had a couple of questions in the chat, I know.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. First of all, again, congratulations on the presidency of Belgium for the next half year, and looking forward to a lot of exciting changes from Belgium to come and inputs. And relying on, as I've realized, a very pragmatic approach taken by Belgium public sector and Belgian politicians. So I think it's going to be an exciting next half year. Now, my main question, Julien, is how do you see the strengthening of the European space sector, and especially gaining greater independence for Europe, for the European space sector, from foreign suppliers. This is especially when it comes to semiconductors used for sensors, but also building small satellites. I mean, Belgium is one of the countries building small satellites, and has a highly recognized semiconductor developer. So how do you see this? How do you see Belgium pushing forward, or pushing for a greater independence to be more competitive, for instance, against the United States or against China, where these two issues have been dealt with a lot of money being pushed into those sectors? So that's one of my main concerns. And before I forget, I will come back, if you allow me, I will come back to the data regulation issue again after your answer, because I'm sitting in Canada right now. We're wrapping up to move to Belgium, as Jeff knows. So I'm sitting here in party packing. But the data security laws are a major hindering source for the EO sector. Not only for data suppliers, but also for value adders. And the US, Jeff is smiling about this.
Oh no, well done, Wolfhard. You slipped your two questions into one. So
sorry about that. To the first one.
Yeah, regarding the first question, it's a very difficult question. as European we are working on right now. It's finding the right balance between our desire to be independent and achieving the strategic autonomy and the reality of the situation and the pace we want to impose ourselves to be autonomous and independent strategically. If you look at you talked about the semiconductors, which is really small, but if you think about really big for the launcher, for example, we are exactly in the same situation. For years, we've been talking about strategic autonomy. We have been. It's the word that I pronounced the most over the past few years. That in the end, now we are in the situation where we have to negotiate in last minute an agreement with the United States and with SpaceX in order to send our satellites. So it's a difficult question. I know that Commissioner Breton has been working also a lot on the subject, but I think, in my just my opinion, and it's not even Belgian opinion, but the most difficult part right now is finding the right balance, because we can say, okay, starting from now, we don't want to use parts of our small components coming from China or whatever country it is, because it's not a European country. It's something to say, but apply if we still want to be able to produce our components. We know that at this stage it's not possible. So it's mostly a question about timing and having a long-term vision, which is, I think it's the most important thing when you talk about space. It's the program we develop in space are very long-term program. It's long-term driven, and for every component, even the smallest part, we have to integrate this dimension. And of course, the recent international development, the conflict with between Russia and Ukraine, all those events are constant reminder that we cannot rely only on some components that are not from the EU, because we pay the price today, and we could pay it even more tomorrow if we don't act. So it's a slow process, and I think that now the process started. Now the real question will be how fast will we move into that real independence in that domain.
Yeah, I think it would also benefit the European space industries, especially the SMEs, not having to purchase from what's almost a monopoly right now on certain components, but this will drive down prices, will be increasing competitiveness for everybody. Very quickly about the space data laws. There is
Wolfhard, let me invite somebody else to come in. We're a little bit short of time.
Okay, so
Giovanni, I'll let you just. I don't know if you want to come in or whether we've dealt with it, but then I would turn to Emmanuel and give you the chance afterwards, Giovanni, if you wish. Emmanuel Mondon.
Yes. Good afternoon. Before Giovanni, I will have problems with Giovanni. Sorry about that. Two questions. I'm deeply involved in data sharing initiatives. Do you plan or expect synergies between the space sector and the EU data strategy? That's the first question. And the second one related to the so-called the space data economy strategy. I heard about that a few months ago from DG Defis, and then nothing else. So kind of black hole, black box. So do you have news about it? Thanks.
Well, I will first start with the second question, because let me answer the first one first. Yeah, the link between the space sector and everything related to data. I'm not an expert at all in that matter, but what I can say, what I see on a daily basis, it's the transversal nature now of the space program. When we, for example, when we talked about EARSC, for example, it was involving many different sectors. Not all, it was people involved in security, people involved in defense, people involved in economy, people involved in data. So I think that in the future and in the upcoming months/years, the way the space program will be negotiated will involve many different type of actors than it used to be before. I think before, and I see it in my working party, usually in my working party, it's the space attaché and that's it. We used to work between ourselves. Now, seeing the different programs that end up on our table, we are more and more trying to work with the other group, with the attaché dealing with cyber, with the attaché dealing with environment, with the attaché dealing with communication. So the link with everything that's related to data will also happen naturally, I think. Regarding your second question, it's an excellent question, because when I said that the Commission came up with surprises during the Ursula von der Leyen speech, you were right. The third, so it was called at that time a space package. The space package was EU space law, the midterm review of the space program, and the third part of the space package was this EU strategy for data economy, or I don't remember exactly the name. So it was supposed to end up on our table. It was supposed to be a communication from the Commission. And then, as you said, I would not say that the subject disappeared, but they decided that they would not be ready for our presidency. And from what I understood, this proposal, this communication from the Commission on space data economy should be proposed at the end of 2024. So it will be most likely for the Hungarian presidency, or most likely for the beginning of 2025, so for the Polish presidency, but not for ours. So I really don't know what would be inside that strategy.
Do you see any further progress on the wider data strategy? Not the space, but the data strategy that's being worked on with DG Connect?
On my side, no, because in the way I work in the space working party is that once the space program is negotiated, it's over for us, and the real work starts in the program committee, so the Copernicus committee, for example, for this part. So the next time I'll be involved, and it will come pretty fast on my table. It's the next space program, because we will start the negotiation process most likely during we start, because we have to finish the negotiation once our actual program will be over. So we have to start the process early. So it will start during the Danish presidency, because my head functions now. I used to function as an academic. The year was starting in September with the beginning of the academic year. Now my brain functions in presidencies. So the next time we will really delve into the question of data in my group, because in the other group it's a regular topic. In my group would be in the preparation process of the next MFF and the next space program, which will be tomorrow.
Okay, that would be interesting. So Giovanni, I'll give you the opportunity if you want to come in, and then Pierre Alan, and then I think we're probably going to have to.
Thank you, Geoff, and thank you, Julien. You already addressed the point I made within the chat. I believe that maybe it could be a good idea that we stimulate in that direction dimension at the meeting about the status of the space program. And I believe that at a certain level, even the discussion about the space law can be an opportunity to link a sort of needs of space act of specific legislation in support of the exploitation of Earth observation data. On the other side of the pond, the US government published, I believe,
Okay, thanks, Giovanni. Pierre Alain, yeah, you're still with us, Pierre. And then, if possible, I'll take Paul Cunet because it's an interesting. Yeah, Pierre Alain, we don't hear you.
You don't hear me?
Well, you're very faint.
Better.
Better. Try again. Vaguely.
I will turn off.
That's getting better.
So I turn off the video. I think it is better.
Yes, I think you just need to be close to the microphone. I think that's the key.
Yeah. In fact, the last years we have seen a very good move on the use of Earth observation, because now it is mandatory for the command of policy control, and it is also mandatory for the tool for the deforestation regulation that was voted last year. So currently, a lot of companies now are providing services to farmers, to main states, or to industries, or we are covering services based mainly on the Sentinel data. And it used to be that the Sentinel, they were there for environment and for the, but now the use is for to cope with the regulation. So, and my question, and the question we have from some customers is, and what if the data are not available? So, what can we do, or do you intend to do something, or to ask something to the European Commission in order to strengthen the availability or the resiliency of the Sentinel system and generally of the Earth observation system?
Okay, Julien.
I will have. I had many difficulties to understand the question, but also because it's a topic that is a question that would be a better question for my colleagues dealing with especially Earth observation and not only with the transversal European space policy like I do. But if your question is what can we do if the data are not available, it would be most likely a question for the Commission rather than a question for me. And I would suggest you to join us at the next European Space Conference that will happen in Brussels, because I can imagine that many of the persons that are participating today at this EOcafe will at least try to follow that from far away or be present in Brussels, and it would be an interesting time. I think that there's also a panel dedicated to Earth observation during this conference, so it might be interesting to see. But actually, I'm not in a position where I can answer and make an educated answer to a question, unfortunately.
Okay, so just finally, if you'll bear with us, yeah, Paul Cunet.
Bonjour, salut Julien, salut Geoff.
Salut Paul.
So you've just seen my two questions. So one is really this morning, Joseph, in his briefing to the press, announced for a Space Council on the 23rd of May. So any idea on what the agenda would be? And the subsidiary question is, as I like Africa, last time it was a big priority of the last Belgian EU presidency. Absolutely nothing on Africa this time.
Thank you for the question about the Space Council. I see that news are getting are going very fast in the small space European sphere. So no, we since the start of the preparation of our presidency, we were planning on having something with ESA because, as I said, and as you know, Paul, ESA is really important for Belgium. We were planning on having at first what was called a space summit, a bit like the same format that was used during the French presidency. So a joint meeting, informal joint meeting of EU and ESA, because we like that EU and ESA all talk together in order to avoid duplication and all the things that you know. But Spanish also organized a space summit, so we were hesitating of organizing the same event, but in the end, we kept the door open to ESA, saying if there's a need to organize something, we are available. And ESA understood that perfectly and understood that we will organize something. It's not only that we are available, it's that we will organize something. And so we decided that we will organize, as you said, a space council. It will be the 11th formal space council between EU and ESA, and will indeed happen on the 23rd of May. So this is what will happen, what will be discussed during the meeting. It's something different. So it's still in the process. It's still into discussion because it doesn't only involve the Belgian presidency of EU. It also involves our colleagues from the German presidency on the ESA side. So a task force or a quadriga, for those who knows, a quadriga has been set. And the idea is come to a political decision in the margin of the European Space Conference in January. So end of January, we should have a topic for this meeting. Several ideas have been tested. Some are interesting, some are, I would say, a bit too provocative to be addressed by ESA and the EU. But one of the topics that seems to be one of the most interesting and most acceptable for every actor is, for example, the question of the competitiveness of the EU industry in the new global space framework that is evolving very fast and is changing a lot. So competitiveness might be one of the topics, but still, it's a very high-level political decision that will be taken in January. So stay tuned.
Very interesting. Thank you, Paul, for bringing that up, and thank you, Julien. We'll bring things to a close there. I just have a little personal request that I'm going to throw out, because I've accepted to give a sort of a talk to a local Rotary club, and I'm looking for some good material. Firstly, on the benefits of space more broadly. I expected to find something on the ESA website, but either I'm lacking in the skills to find it, or there isn't material there. But also then clearly on Earth observation, and I'm looking for stories. So as I've done on several other occasions, as you know, SEBS is about stories. I want to illustrate, the advantages, what we do with satellite data, but illustrated by stories around them. And they're not space stories; they can be completely different. So, for instance, I'll talk about Greenland and the impact of climate on Greenland. But I will also bring in a little story about the geostrategic elements of Greenland, and as many will have followed Trump offering to buy Greenland during his presidency, which of course wasn't the first time that offer had been made. I'll also use the Borgen series from the television. So if you have any sort of interesting material, I'm looking for some. So thank you. And that's the end of my announcement. And let me thank Julien very much for being with us. I think it's been
My pleasure.
Very interesting discussion, very lively discussion with some good questions coming in as well. So Julien, thank you very much indeed. We'll perhaps talk again when things become a little bit clearer, but I appreciate that your time is going to be very, very precious.
It was really interesting. It was basically part of my day so far, so thank you.
Good. Well, I hope it wasn't too intellectually challenging. It
was refreshing and interesting.
Good. So our talk, our EOcafe, in 2 weeks' time. We'll have Artie Miney, who many of you may know from her time in Brussels, who's now at the UN, heading up the UN-USA office. So Artie will join us to talk about what's happening in the UN context and what is being talked about globally. It seems to me to be a very important time for more global discussions and dealing with some of the issues that are touching us globally. So that will be the next EOcafe. At this point, we'll draw things to a close, turn the microphones, the recording off. Anyone who wishes to join in, please just open your microphone.